Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome back to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. I know y'all missed me. I missed you too. It's been a minute, but maybe you caught up with some of my previous episodes, like with Tara Pollock. And if you haven't, please go chime back into that. I think it's timely. Yeah, revenue, marketing and revenue. It's always a hot topic. Go hang out with Tara. It'll be good for your soul, I promise. In the meantime, we're back. We're back from a little hiatus. Hey, I get vacation too. We're all human here. We all deserve it. But I'm excited to be back. I'm excited I have a little bit more energy in me and a bit more vigor. And I'm looking forward to having so many great conversations. What a lineup we have for you starting today and through August, y'all. So buckle up. And this is going to be a great kickoff. If you are here with us, say hi. I can't see you unless I see you in the comments so that we can respond and answer all of your glorious questions, which I know you have. Because this has been an event that has been live for a week and y'all know it was coming. So I know you got your questions and we are here for it. I'm so excited to have this conversation with Laura McAliley.
McAliley.
McAliley. Oh, Laura. See, I am a little rusty.
No, trust me, you're not the first one.
That whole perfectionist in me, it comes out and I want to get it right. But I appreciate you jumping in. And I'm grateful for this conversation because I think it's incredibly timely as we all settle into the roughness that's going to be Q3. I think we're all seeing it already where people are going on vacation. They're a little bit more disconnected. We're like, why are our numbers dropping? Why is the open rate not as open? Why are the clicks not as clickable? What is happening? Yeah. People are also being human and taking breaks just like I just did. So good on them and yay for you. And summer's going to slow down and that's okay because it's a great time to settle into the data and the research and to understand your customer. Are you sick of me saying it yet? If you've been reading any of my LinkedIn posts, I talk a lot about the customer and it ain't going away because it goes back to your customer. And Laura and I are going to dig into that today. A little bit about Laura before we get started. Laura's got a great story, y'all. I can't wait for you to hear it, but just a little bit about her. She is a B2B marketing, communication, and customer experience professional with 20 plus years building brands, nurturing customer relationships, and driving business growth. Her unique background aligns marketing with customer needs. Are y'all picking up on a little string there? In both consulting and customer success roles. This results in a holistic approach to aligning the product requirements and marketing strategies that drive customer success. There's a lot of, it's going to be great. It's going to be
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's all about the customer, Laura. It is. You're going to bring that to life for us. Before we get into the heart of our conversation around the customer, tell us your story. This is a lot of interesting dichotomies that seem to fit very nicely together. But whether marketing found us or you found marketing is a journey, and we're here for it. So what's your story? What do you do and how'd you get there?
Yeah. So I thought when I came out of college many, many moons ago that I would be a journalist. And I got a little bit of time to work at a local magazine and got a bug for public relations. So ended up transitioning and spending about 10 years at agencies, working in public relations and then account management. I found out I really liked the business strategy side of that and working with customers on what their strategy was and how we implement different marketing tactics along that. Social media came along in that time period because I've been around that long. And we had to figure all that out. And so we were constantly helping customers grow. I then decided it was time to get out of the agency world. I wanted to be in-house. I wanted to own a brand, right? I wanted to spend my time on one company and ended up at a managed services provider. Spent a good amount of time doing marketing, but then also ended up leading a front-end development team, SharePoint development team, kind of randomly. But it professional services, agency work, they go hand in hand. and did that for a while. Learned a lot about development, learned a lot about that process and the needs of developers. And then when I got recruited to Security Journey, which was the last startup I was at, it made sense that the AppSec space was just really natural to understand and understanding the developers. And I always loved security. So I spent a couple years there at Security Journey, and we had a successful exit in May of 22. I spent about 6 months at the new company and exited from that in December of 22, and took some time off. And last May 23 or so, we kind of got the gang back together. The same founder and I got together and started Devici. And we've since brought in our COO, who was with us at Security Journey. And now here we are building a threat modeling platform for development teams.
Got the band back together.
Yeah. And I will say, during my time at Security Journey, because when you're in early stage bootstrap startups, you wear multiple hats. And so because I had worked with customers and account strategy and business strategy in the past, I ran customer success for a little while, as well as marketing. And so I was in the trenches, on calls with customers, answering chat, doing all of those things, which is, I think, so very important for marketers, because when you hear what the customer is saying, you can better write the messaging, you can better develop content, you can better speak to them. I have been involved with customer conversations at Devici. I'm not running customer success now, but I am still very in tune with what's going on and hearing those conversations, because it's just so important.
We're going to dig into that, y'all. That's what it's all about right now. I want to go back to, well, before I get there, I'm jumping the gun. How to practice, shaking it off. Before I get to my next question, which I think will lead nicely into our conversation, what's a challenge you're currently facing? So you've recreated the startup world with your original founders, and you're about a year old. Ooh. So what's it for you right now in terms of something in your way or a challenge you're facing?
Yeah, so we launched for general availability in April, end of April, beginning of May. And, really understanding what that customer, what that purchase function is, what that customer need is to get them over that hump, is always a big challenge, right? Especially because we haven't proven out, and we're in somewhat of an emerging market. So where product market fit is a big discussion that I'm having right now, and how to position that. I think one of the challenges that you have when you're this early is walking a very fine line of selling roadmap and selling current product, and because they're moving very quickly. So marketing needs to be able to keep up without surpassing. And so really formulating that message and being right on with what expectations are, but also giving a little bit of that, here's what's coming, like it's growing, we're still moving, and being able to manage expectations from the customer standpoint.
So important and so hard to do. Managing
Yes.
customer expectations. Yeah. Especially when you're, well, it's interesting. It sounds like you're wearing two hats as being a small team, a very startup-y team. You're sort of on both. Correct me if I'm wrong. What I feel like I hear you're saying is you're sort of straddling both the product and the demand gen side. Like you have to figure out the product market fit and know your customer and like that squishiness. And then you got to go figure out from marketing side how to sell it through market.
Yeah.
Who's selling
How to
them?
message it.
Are you also
So
selling?
we do have, no, I'm not selling. We do have
Okay.
we're a small team, so we do have someone committed to selling and CS. Our COO Brian, who we work very closely together, he's kind of taken on that role, and I've taken on product and demand gen, inbound, kind of however you want to call it. And then we work very closely together on where those things cross. So, but yes, it is very much a product. We are doing a PLG kind of go-to-market strategy. So I spend half of my time in the product, nudges, upselling, communication to users, as well as then bringing those users in. Right now, that's the split.
So the nudging, is that all through essentially email then? Like if you're trying to move them up and through, or what do you mean by nudging?
No, there is some email, but also in product message, in app
In-app.
messaging and communications. Yeah.
Man, PLG is interesting, and so it sounds like you're especially in the cyber world where it's a bit more complex. It's kind of hard, from what I hear through the grapevine. It's a little harder to do PLG because it's just a harder sell. So people will download the trial just to prove that it's there and it exists.
Yes.
And then they'll go call you for a demo. They're like, okay, what you said on the website is actually here, but also I don't want to wire it all up. So can I just have a demo so you can tell me all the things?
Yeah, I need a
But
POCs are very important in our world still, and there's kind of a hybrid that has to happen, I think, in any cyber business because you're dealing with security, and in threat modeling, we're dealing with companies putting the design of their applications in our platform, and so they really need to trust us, and that requires a conversation, and so we're here for that. Yeah,
so you're working all angles.
all angles.
That's what you gotta do these days. Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough, especially as a small team. It's not there is no silver bullet. Sorry to break it to y'all.
There is not, and it requires a lot of different motions, and it requires being very strategic very quickly, and a lot of iteration. So I've done some things that didn't work, and so we pulled them back, and I did something else. Our website, I think, is on its like third iteration, because it's just the messaging has evolved, and it we just have to be there in the moment. Um, but that's why the customer input is so important. The user input and understanding what they need, and we're really lucky to have some good users who have given us some really good input.
I don't want to go there yet. I want to pull back. I know we're so ready. We're on the cusp here. I'm keeping you all on your toes. It's great. Um, I want to go back to your previous company from
Mhm.
2022 that you scaled and exited, because I think that would be a very helpful story to understand of how you were able to do it there, and then how what you learned from that to then repeat here. And I know customer is a big part of that, and we'll dig into it. But can you just give us a bit of like where did you come in for that company, of where it was? How did you help from a marketing side sort of scale it? And what does scale even mean in terms of exit? I mean, how quote unquote big were you at that point? Um, and how long did it take you? Sorry, a lot of
Yeah,
questions
so
there.
yeah, there's a lot of questions there. So that way was a little different. I came in, I think they were 4 years in when I came. Um, I was there for about 2 years, not quite, just a little under 2 years. And Chris had never hired a marketing person at all. So I was the first marketing hire. He knew that it was time. They were ready to scale. They wanted to get ready for exit. And so I came in and did the things we do, right? I helped write the brand story so that we had a tone and we had a voice. And there was a logo that existed. And so we kind of refined that. I brought in a really great creative person who is working with me now. Danny's amazing. We work great as a team, but I brought him in to really refine that. And together we built a brand voice and a story that then everything came from. We built out a website. It was a application security training platform is what that is. And so, I built a catalog, like so people could come on the website and just look and see what we're offering. We built product pages and really just refined what was there and made it a little bit more transparent. And then we invested in SEO and some PPC and started really getting the engine moving to bring in potential customers.
How does the customer fit into some of the initial work you did in terms of, I mean, I imagine when you built the brand story to figure out tone and voice, you didn't do that in a vacuum.
No, we did not. So that was again working with customers directly. I was hearing what their pain points were. It's training. How do I get people? How do I get buy-in? And with any kind of platform, you need buy-in. You got to be sticky. So I knew what those pain points were. I knew the customers who had been successful in what they were doing. It centered a lot around the admins and the people who were responsible for training. A lot of compliance requires training, PCI, that kind of thing. So working with those customers to understand what their pain points were, who was being successful, and then translating that to messaging and toolkits and information. We do a lot of education in this space. One thing we've built both brands on is, how do we educate people? Why do you need this training? What is this training for? All of those kind of messages to really make it easier for the customer to implement.
I'm not ignoring you. I'm listening because it is welcome to the Guard household where it is bedtime. And so
Yes.
I'm just seeing if
everybody's
there's
where
some
they should be.
challenges. If everybody's, yeah,
Yes.
I think this is a great time to mention that Tea Time will be moving in August to earlier in the day for this reason. Yes, I think that's a really important sort of process you've sort of laid out for us, Laura. And it sounds like maybe a similar process you're using today to define all those things. So you talk to customers. Do you just call them? Hey, how's it going?
So we've been setting up meetings. We did a pretty robust beta program. And as the beta they came in, we offered, it's in-app messaging, it's emails, it's just outreach. Hey, you're here and we're interested in what you think. So being really transparent about, we need to know what you want. And, if we don't have it, then let's talk about if we can make it happen for you, because we know this audience, and we know that there's similar challenges across them. So if we hear, I have this challenge, we're going to try and solve that challenge. Because if we're not solving a challenge with our product, nobody's going to buy it. It's not really about us, right? It's about what we know they need, and pairing that with the expertise we have in the industry. I will say the other part that helps a lot, and I believe strongly that the founder you work for needs to be an expert in the space you're in. I don't think that always happens, and that's okay. But I work with Chris Romeo as our CEO. He is a thought leader in the AppSec space. So he has 3 podcasts. He creates content. He has a newsletter, and he's been threat modeling for decades. And he is part of a community around this topic. And so it really helps to have him, because one, he understands what the product needs to do and the challenges that need to be solved. But he also is a big part of helping drive our marketing content. Because he understands and can bring that expert opinion. I have that built in. It's a marketer's dream. I'm not going to lie. I'll just say that. It's really easy when you have a founder who can create content and can create good, solid content, and it's respected in your industry, because that just breeds conversation. So it makes it a little easier to get those first conversations going.
The dream. It really is. Especially if you can host podcasts. Like, talk about being able to hang out with your customer on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
No meta intended. Full disclosure, Laura and I are now working together. It's fantastic.
It's very good.
I want to go back to this though, because I think there's so many folks who are trying to figure out how to create content when it sounds like you didn't have to do a lot of convincing to your founder. Like, he's just sort of in it and on it in terms of that thought leadership. Is that fair? How did he get started?
Yeah.
Do you know how he got started in just creating? I feel like that's such a hurdle for founders.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it for a while. The AppSec podcast has been around for a number of years, but predated me. He started that back when he started Security Journey. And he's just naturally somebody who connects with other people. And, by being kind of an expert and a smart guy, he worked at Cisco for a number of years, and built programs like he built a champions program, and he threat modeled there. So he took that knowledge and translated it and went to conferences, met, has known people for years. It's amazing how long he's known some people, and started pulling them in, very similar to what hey, let's have a conversation. And he's good at that. So the application security podcast is a great one if you're getting started in AppSec. Threat modeling podcast is also really good when you want to talk about threat modeling. So
plug there. I'm here for it. We'll drop the links in the comments. I think it's really helpful to see how founders are doing it well, and so that we can mimic that in a thoughtful way. I think
I'll add one other thing I think about that too, just real quick, is authenticity. He's an incredibly authentic guy, and sometimes he has opinions that not everybody agrees with, and he's okay with that, and we're okay with that. But that it's authentic, and he's having a real conversation. There's not any smoke and mirrors about it. So that helps transparency and marketing, I think, especially in the cybersecurity space, and especially with security people and developers. They all look at marketing as we just make a bunch of stuff up a lot of times. We don't always have the best reputation with them. And so I know I've worked really hard, and I know there's a lot of other marketers who do this too, to be authentic and transparent and not use the same trite language over and over again, and not just word vomit a bunch of acronyms and key terms, because we need that. There's a role that marketing plays. It's a very important role in tech, not just in startups. And so being authentic and being true, and knowing that we're working together in partnership. I'm not here to make stuff up. I'm here to make everybody look better, and bring people in. And that happens with an honest conversation. And I think building that reputation is important as well.
It's so important, especially now when we've lost so much trust from our customers.
Yes.
And going to websites and just seeing a wall of acronyms literally hurts my heart. Like,
kills me.
Tell me how you're solving, like, how are you going to make my job better? Like, and a wall of acronyms is not doing that. And I think, and marketing is, there's so many new categories within cybersecurity in particular, because marketing keeps making stuff up. We actually had a client many moons ago where they were trying to create a category. They were trying to create a category around something called wire data, which wasn't a thing. And we were like, you're just doing cybersecurity, right? Like, there's already a category that exists. People are already searching for the problem you solve over there. So we could create a new category, which will be an uphill climb that maybe will pay off, perhaps. Or you could just call a spade a spade. And we go pick up the search volume over there of what people are of how they're already looking for this solution. And so they completely pivoted their whole product to go after, they were like, okay, we're in, it's cybersecurity. But yeah, it's like we're also trying to make our mark.
Yeah. But don't you make your mark so much easier if you just stand out in the space you're in? Like, at least that's my belief. That's how I think. Let's stand out in the space we're in and just do it better, and make more waves. Because creating a category, and again, we're in kind of an emerging category right now. It exists, but it's definitely growing still. And so we need to be different and stand out there. I don't need to go fight. I got enough to do. I don't need to go fight to make a new category.
At least that's the big guns. Apple can go create new categories all day long because they're Apple, and
that's
Apple intelligence, as you do. But yeah, when you're a startup, I think that makes so much sense, and it comes back to the customer and the problem that you're solving, and the way that they are searching for the answer and the solution to that problem that they're having, which is you. So I love that, Laura. I could stand on my pedestal or get on my high horse about that all day. Let's talk about, so in terms of the brand story and tone you were building, you talked to the customer to get buy-in. So what does buy-in mean? when
Mm.
you're in those early stages of trying to figure out if this thing's working for them?
Yeah, I would almost use the word validation a little bit more than I would buy-in.
I like that.
If I use buy-in, I think at this point we need validation. We don't need validation. We're looking for validation because we think what we're doing is correct. We think it's what the market needs. And now we're starting to hear from customers that it is. One of the things that we're hearing is, I like this. Can it do X? This feature really helped me. When can I have it? Kind of thing. Like, when is this part of this going to be done? Or so it's not, I need something completely different than what you're doing. I need this to do more, which is great. At this point, SaaS is very iterative, right? Like, we're
Mhm.
building things out and we're looking for that validation, which then informs how we support them and informs our product roadmap from our product side. And then it informs our messaging, both from the product side and from the demand gen side. Because we know, yes, we were right, or maybe we were wrong. This isn't as important as we thought it was going to be, and so we're going to focus on what's important to the customers right now.
Has that happened? Have you uncovered something
Um,
that you thought was like what they wanted, and lo and behold, they wanted this other thing instead?
no, not at this point. I think we saw that with
Okay.
training a little bit. There are some things that we thought were going to be a bigger splash that people are happy about, but they more need this other feature. They need to
Mhm.
be able to add some custom things to the platform more than they're worried about some other feature kind of stuff that's like, yeah, this is a nice to have. So I don't think we've built anything so far that isn't aligned with what customers need, um, which is great.
That
It's
is
very
great.
validating. It's just the startup thing is build it fast, but build it well and manage that. So that's anybody in a startup will tell you that's always kind of the limited resources and
The tree.
lots to do.
Ah,
Yes.
lots too. So how's it helping you from the demand side then? If you're talking about, you said, getting validation helps both on the product of these are the features that they're actually looking for, and then how do you relate that into what you're doing on the demand side, the
Yeah, so I
marketing
built
side?
early on and I maintain a product feature benefits spreadsheet, just a basic spreadsheet that's like, hey, here's the feature, this is what it does, here's the benefit that it offers the customer, and here's the message that I've aligned to that feature. So one of the things we heard early on is that threat modeling takes a lot of time. It was traditionally done on a whiteboard, um, and and then you have the team has to identify where they think threats are and build that out manually. And our system helps connect what each part of that diagram is doing, of that model is doing, and it offers up threats and mitigations for them so they're not having to guess. Um, and it
Nice.
happens kind of on demand, so it's much faster. And we have some other features coming to help build out a threat model on more automated than the manual piece that people are used to. Um, and so I have a page, our product page on our website says threat models that practically build themselves, because the challenge for that customer is the time it takes to build them. The benefit to what we're offering what the platform does is it helps to build those models. It gets them further along than if they were doing it manually or if they were using some other open source tools, that kind of thing. And it solves that problem. So listening to the customer, understanding what the product does, and then creating a message that aligns and communicates solving that challenge for the customer is more effective than word spattering that we see a lot. So every word I think is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Paragraphs upon paragraphs that don't actually tell me anything about anything, and the acronym every other word. It's great.
In today's landscape, technology has more of an important. I mean, like if I read that one more
Throw
time, I
AI
don't
in
know.
there. Don't forget it. Don't forget AI.
Yes,
Gotta
AI.
gotta get AI in there.
Yes.
I love the sentence though, threat models that build themselves. It's so hard to say something so impactful in not many words. Do you find that you just have a little bit of a knack for that, given your background of journalism and PR, or is there like some sort of formula that you sort of follow when you're listening to your customer and you're trying to figure out like, okay, how am I going to pull that through line? For those of us who are not as eloquent, I guess I'm asking Laura, like, what nugget can you give us to say, here's how I sort of think about this as I'm going down this road?
Yeah, so practically is in there. So I think it's important to say it's threat models that practically build themselves, because I also like to overpromise. And so uh, let's be, again, transparency. Practically, you're still going to have to do some of it, but it makes it a lot easier, right? So that kind of came about. We iterated on that. It was a little bit longer. I'm a big stickler on as few words as possible, and I've learned that just over time, active voice, working with interns and helping them learn how to write. I think as you teach other young and career people how to write for marketing and get attention, then you also refine your skills. Because I would get this stuff that was just so long, and you'd say, make this more active. I want you to say it in half the words. You know, that helped a lot. I'm not going to lie. I think we all do this. I tend to write things and plug them into my good old chat GPT buddy and ask them to shorten it. Grammarly has an incredible AI writer that shortens
Okay.
things. So if I don't feeling like I've got where I want to be, then I'll kind of use some tools to help me then refine it a little bit more, because it's really just me right now from a marketing standpoint. So I don't have that kind of team to come in and say, okay, let's make this a little bit more succinct. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of, so let's talk about AI and ChatGPT for a second, because it's all the rage. So, while we're here, um, I think there's a bit of a challenge people are having. It feels like either I'm going to swing both ways pretty hard just to be that person for a second, then we'll come back to the middle. It feels like on LinkedIn, people are either completely gung ho, here's all the prompts in all the land, here's how you can get AI to do your job. You can create all the images and all the copy, and it'll shorten the time by 10x, to the people who are like, I'm not touching it, it's terrifying, and I don't need AI to do my job, right?
Yes.
I feel like you're somewhere in the middle, which I appreciate.
Yes.
And it sounds like, you're going to correct me, it's going to be great, but it sounds like you're doing a bulk of it up front and then asking GPT to help you refine, or are you sort of like getting it to do the bulk, adding your own flavor, and then asking it? How are you using ChatGPT in a way that still, again, coming back to the authenticity that's so important to you all? How are you bringing AI into it, but still keeping that alive?
Yeah, so I do sometimes. I use it a little bit of both ways, and you're right. I'm very in the middle in that. I think that there's a place for it, that it help. Especially, I don't have a team. I need to do things very efficiently, and I need to create really impactful content. And I would love to spend a whole day writing a blog post and refining it and making it everything I want it to be. But the reality is that I don't have the time. I can't do that. So I need things that are going to help me in that respect. Sometimes I'll write something and go, this is just not hitting with me. And so I'll use AI to help me kind of refine that. Sometimes I'll write really long prompts. So I've almost written it, but it's that stream of consciousness, and let it then build it for me. So I can spend less time kind of refining it. But what you put into AI is what you get out of it. And no matter if I put something into it that's almost ready and I just want it to refine, or if I'm giving it like just the basics and asking it to output the original content, you have to spend time with it. It is not the hallucination piece is really important. I'll admit I've gotten busted not reading something thoroughly enough and then gone back and went, that makes no sense. I got to change that. Um, so I really have gotten to where, depending on what I'm working on, depends on when I put it in. But whenever I do, you have to then on the back end spend time with it and make sure that it's correct, make sure that it's not pulling something that's just completely off and left base, or just throwing a bunch of words together, because let's be real, AI does that sometimes too. Um, my ChatGPT and I have kind of gotten to a good place and reformed our relationship a little bit. Um, so it's learned a little bit. So I find the content I get from it now is better. I have very strong things in place about original content only, and I feed it what it needs and tell it not to go look other places, because plagiarism is, I think, a big deal, and I don't want that. So how you work with AI is really important, and what you feed it, I think, is important as well.
I think that's such an important point that so many of us miss. AI is what you feed it, right? It is a parrot. So if you
Yes.
don't feed it anything, then it'll go off to the internet and find it elsewhere, which, to your point, Laura, is tricky business because it might
Yes.
plagiarize something that somebody already said. So this idea of, I do something similar where I find it turns out better results when I write something from scratch and raw, knowing it's not quite right, especially for clients who have a very specific tone, right? I don't have the same tone as my clients. They're going to have a very different tone than I do. And so I've trained the AI on their tone. I'll write it in mine, and then I will feed it into the AI to say, rewrite this in this person's tone. And it has turned out so much better than the other way around. I've tried it multiple ways, but asking it for the thing first and then trying to refine it,
Mm.
yeah, no, it's
Doesn't always work.
bland, it's
Yeah.
gray, it doesn't sound good, it sounds generic. Um,
Yes.
and so the other way around really helps. I do have to say, there have been times where I've used AI, like on LinkedIn, and it said, "Hey, would you like me to rewrite this with AI?" And I'll go, you know what, this is a bit long and a bit like a lot, so yeah, rewrite it for me. And then it takes everything that's me out of it. Like,
Yes, it does. It does. It does do that. And I will say there are times where, like, if I'm like, we do a bunch of webinars, LinkedIn live events, with experts in the industry. And so I'll have it like, hey, here's the description and the event, write me 3 social media posts and 2 emails. And I won't feed it anything except for the information. It sometimes misses the meat, but it does give me, like, the whole sitting and thinking, okay, I got to write 3 LinkedIn posts and they should be this long and they should be structured this way. It at least gets that structure there. I can go
yeah.
then on those short form kind of content pieces,
Mhm.
I can go add in the meat. I can go add in and change some words and make it more exciting. So I think that's when it does well. Having it write a big blog post or an ebook or some kind of big piece of copy can be a little bit more challenging, because it just is too hard. By then, you're rewriting the whole thing anyway.
Yeah, loses its luster,
A little bit.
but a
It
little
hasn't
bit,
figured
a little
out
bit.
tone yet. Yeah, the
No,
human
but I
piece of
do
it comes
love
out. Yeah.
I do love what you're saying though. Like, if that stream of consciousness and having it clean it up a bit would be really helpful. And I think the prompts, my strategist who you work with, Nathan, has like
Mm.
refined the
Yes.
art of the prompt, and like they're
Yes.
long. They're long prompts and they are
Yes.
very detailed, and it's taken him time to get there. But now, I mean, for the work that we need to get done, it's quick because he's taken the time up front. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
not, I'm telling you guys, there's no silver bullet to marketing. I hate to break
No.
it to you, not even with AI, but if you spend the time up front, it can make your life easier on the back end.
Yeah. I looked at Nathan's prompts the first time and went, ah, we are kindred spirits. So I have those really long prompts too, and I have them saved in a OneNote. Like, I'll pull from this one sometimes and that one from sometimes, and so and we've been able to produce some good content because of that. So we're definitely kindred spirits in
Kindred spirits.
that.
Oh, wait till I tell him. He's gonna be. Oh, wait till I tell him. It's gonna be so good. Nathan, if you're listening, oh, we are with you, sir.
Yes,
Good work.
yes, good work.
Good work. In terms of the customer and
Mm.
going back to building that brand and that story. The sticky piece is interesting. So we talked about validation.
Mhm.
We took a detour to AI. We're circling back again. I love this word sticky.
Yes.
Tell me about that when you're talking about active voice and making something in the voice of the customer sticky.
Yeah, I mean, that for me, that is, am I communicating something that pays off in the product so that the customer stays, right? That it's expensive to get new customers, especially when we're this early, right? It's expensive. And so once we
Yes.
get them, we want to keep them. We don't want them to go away. Please be my friend, right? Um, so, how do we? And I think that starts from the very beginning. The promise and the the transparency of the brand at that first touch is going to stay with somebody throughout their relationship. And so, if we need to communicate what the product does, make sure that it's solving their problem. It's not just, oh, I need this tool and you're doing this for me. It's, I have a challenge and you're going to help me solve it, which we all know that cybersecurity professionals have lots of challenges. We think we have a lot of work. The development teams have so much work to do. And so how do we solve some of those challenges? How do we make it where they're the old HubSpot where they're advocates. I don't remember what their flywheel said, but that, how do you make them sticky? How are they going to stay with you when the other brands come calling and the competitors come and the new companies come in? How do you build that loyalty and make it sticky? And I think that starts from the first touch.
And the first touch is that when they sign into that product for the first time, the email, what's the first touch?
Oh no, I think it's that first touch, that first brand touch. Where do they meet you? Are we on a LinkedIn post? Are they attending a webinar? Are we at a trade show? Like, what do we say from there? That needs to follow all the way through their interactions with the brand. I think it's so important for it to be the same all the way through that life cycle with us. And everybody has to be in lockstep in order to do that.
Do you think it helps to be a startup and have I don't want to simplify because what you all do across the board, whether you're a startup, a scale up, or an enterprise, it's all tricky in its own right.
It is
In this
absolutely.
instance, I'm wondering if it's a little bit easier for y'all because you have a product that's generally solving one specific issue. It might be able to do lots of things to have lots of features attached to it,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, you're trying to do one thing really well. Where I feel like when you get to that enterprise place, you have a lot of messages you're trying to communicate.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
fair?
I think that's absolutely fair. And I like the challenge of building that message. I think once you get to that enterprise level, you have this brand underneath you that drives all those messages. I mean, a year ago we didn't have a name, right? No less a brand and a logo and all of that. So trying to build that and what that foundational message is that then traverses everything we do is a challenge in itself. And I think it's a skill set that not every marketer has. But just like I'm not going to go to an enterprise and think that I want to be their CMO because that's a whole nother world that I just don't have as much experience in. It's not, I like to be in this space. I like to build these brands and build that foundation so that somebody else then can grow it into an enterprise and take it off to bifurcate it out into multiple brands that's supported by one foundation.
It's so
That
interesting
answers your
because market
question.
yeah, no, I have two questions. I have a thought and then a question to follow up, but I do want to say in looking at all the customers we've worked with across startup, scale up, and an enterprise, and all the great people I've talked to over the years on my podcast, there is a type
Yeah,
of
I'm
like
sure.
who fits in those, and it is a completely different mental muscle from being a single entity of thinking strategically and high level to then getting in the weeds and executing and doing, which is where I sit there with you. Like
Yeah,
I have such a hard time like decoupling as a fractional. Like I want to be on the back end of the website and I want to be playing with the messaging and I want to do all this stuff and I want to think high level of like the things. And then to look
exactly.
at the enterprise folks who are more about building the teams and the dynamic and managing the budget and like it's it's so interesting, and the personalities that sort of like go with that. It's very interesting. We can
Yes.
talk about the
I
psychology of that all day.
and that was where, so I took some time off after Security Journey and before we started this last year, just because it had been a long time, and I honestly wanted to spend time with my family and just take a break for a minute, which was a great. I recommend that for everybody. You should take a few months off at some point, at this point in your career, and just evaluate where you are. And I started thinking about what my next thing was, um, and I started thinking, do I want to go like in house at someplace big? I've worked at small companies. Maybe I should. And the more I thought about it, I was like, I am just not. That's not the cloth I'm necessarily cut from. I'm not saying one day I wouldn't do that, but at this point in my life, building something from the ground up was so much more exciting. And having a small team, which eventually we plan to have, and working with budgets and managing some of those things on a smaller scale, but also, you know, setting up all of the communications in app and putting out emails and doing all the other things, and turning the dials and creating the messaging. I like to have my hands in all those buckets. It's fun to see it all come together. It's so
The
fun.
dopamine hit when it goes well, like, oh, it's so hard to top that. Of like,
You
I
know, no, go
tell me,
ahead.
you did what?
So we did our first trade show last October. It was OWASP in DC, which is an industry organization, and I had a booth. And it was the first time the brand had been out. Like nobody had seen the brand. We just launched the website. And I remember standing there after we set it up. I was like, I have a brand. That dopamine hit. I was just, yay, we did it. Here we are.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Speaking of brand, that is the perfect segue to my question that I wanted to ask you was, what does brand mean to you on this scale when you're brand new and you're out of the gate, you know, and you're sort of in search for creating that groundswell? What does that mean for you at this time?
That's a good question. How do I communicate that? I really think that it is the who that our audience is engaging with. It is the who. It's the why of who we are. Um, Having a thought leader is a great thing as a founder, but also the company has to stand on its own. So it's the entity that brings all of that, that communicates the benefits and the solutions to other people, to the audience. Um, it's our personality. I think we kind of took the approach of, Danny and I looked at what is threat modeling and how do we visually communicate that so that people understand it, but it's kind of fun and feels easy to work with. So we have shapes and we have colors, and it's soothing, and we were very intentional about all of that so that it creates a feeling, of feeling comfortable. Just like our messaging needs to be transparent, the visuals have to do that too. So it is that foundation.
I love that. I mean, people always come back to like the look and feel. Oh, it's our colors and our logo and our font. But what you're talking about, which I think is so impactful, is the personality you're creating with
Mhm.
that and the feelings you
Yes.
want behind that. People don't realize how color creates that sense of feeling. So when you're talking about feeling calm, what colors
Mhm.
are associated with that, but also being a bit playful in the using the shapes, right? So it's that feeling that you want of why the colors and the font and the shapes exist. And I think
Yes.
we get so caught up in the design of it all. How do we make
Yes.
it pretty that
But
we
pretty doesn't
spare the
match the
customer?
voice. Yeah, right. If pretty doesn't match, from the experience of the customer isn't going to be, this is kind of a trite example, but Apple did this well. I, I've always appreciated the way Apple did this. Everything is designed to meet that feeling of creativity and high end. There's a feeling and an emotion that comes from opening an Apple product, whether you like it or not. But there is, because it's so well designed to match the experience you have with the technology.
It's so true. I feel the same way about Apple products, regardless of how much they've actually, before he knocks something over. There is something about the Apple products, like as much as they haven't really changed, the change that they've created, right, is very, very incremental. So if you look at where
Yes.
they are today versus where they were 10 years ago, yeah, it's going to feel big. But if you're using their products on an ongoing basis, it's not that big of a change. Like they're always second to the game by design, right? So they're, if you talk about
Right.
the spatial headset that they created, right? Spatial computing, creating a new
Yes.
category. Can't have a can't use the headset like everybody else. It's got to be its own thing, right? So
Yes.
um uh regardless of whether I think that's a great product or not, or whether I'm going to use it, I'm probably not. But it looks gorgeous and it's so well
Yes.
designed. And I just sort of want to see one in person just to like see it in
Yes.
person. So
Yes.
I I agree. And it goes, and you can spot an Apple product, you know whether somebody's wearing Apple AirPods or a knockoff. You can
Right.
spot it a mile away, right? There's
Yes.
a sense of that design element, that high quality that they stand on as
Yes.
their brand. And the feelings they want to invoke, right? They know it's expensive. They want you to feel like you're putting a very high-end piece of equipment in those, no matter how big they are, in your
In
ears.
your
So
ears. Right. And then couple that with the experience you have when you walk into an Apple store, right? And the cleanness and the color and the way that they use space, and then the interactions you have with the people who work there, and then when you talk to Apple support, or when you, so they've really carried that brand. It permeates through everything they do, and that's where I think we as marketers have to get to, is that it's not just a look and feel. It's not just this, I like the way this picture looks, so I'm going to pop it in this graphic, or what we beat to death, acronym splatter everywhere. It's that feeling everywhere that you touch somebody, or everywhere somebody, a potential customer or a current customer, touches your brand, they need to feel that same experience. They need to read something that pays off the customer success experience they have, that pays off the SDR experience they have. Like, all of that needs to work together. And I think, again, I think Apple's done a great job of that. But when you talk about branding, I think that's what branding is so much more today, I guess, than it used to be,
mhm.
because it has to be so authentic.
And that's how you build trust, because
Right.
everything you say follows up with confirming the thing you said and then adding on to it, and then confirming the
That's
thing
right.
you said and the thing you said and then adding on to it, right? And that's really how that trust is built. And for cybersecurity companies, it's everything you're saying from the very first touch of bringing that brand through, of what you want them to feel when they're interacting with you, to hearing from them of and getting the validation of whether this is the thing or not the thing, or what about the thing is the thing that you thought
Mhm.
maybe it is but isn't, to making it sticky, and pulling that all the way through, from not just the marketing side and the demand gen side, which is where we sort of like, where, okay, sales
Right.
has got it. Cool, we
Right.
can stop here, right? It's like,
Yes.
no, it's got to come all the way through sales,
Yes.
all the way through the product, and all the way through customer success, right? And I
Yes.
think, and it's got to start with the customer,
That's right.
and then
And
with the
that
customer,
first touch.
and that first touch.
Yes, and I think trust is the right. I mean, that you're right. That's the very thing. The ultimate goal is, that, do you trust me as your partner? Um, and I think that's easier. To your earlier point, I think it's easier when we're smaller in a startup than it is when you're the big enterprise level, right? It just gets harder.
Yeah.
But that is the ultimate, is building trust and maintaining that trust. I think you're exactly right.
Well, you get to build with them. It's a little more
Hmm.
exciting as a startup, right? You get to sort of build
Awesome.
around your customer. And I feel like enterprises sort of lose sight of that once they have the brand equity and they get a bit big. It gets harder.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they lose sight of it. It just gets harder. It's a different beast.
Well,
Um,
there's different business requirements, and there's different
mhm.
factors that pull at that, which is just the reality of growth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the journey. I'm excited to be.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us along the journey. It's very exciting.
Oh,
We've absolutely loved working with you, and you're very small, but very nimble, very bright team. If you, if people want to learn more about you, Laura, from a marketing standpoint, or they want to learn more about Devici, where can they find you?
yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. Um, Hit me up in my inbox. Happy to have a conversation with anybody. As you can tell, I love to talk about this stuff. And having a small team, it's always fun to find people to have conversations with. So Devici is Devici.com. That was one thing in naming is we had to make it an easy thing to get the right URL. So Devici.com, if you want to check out the brand, please join us. Come check it
And
out.
ask her how they came up with the name. That should be your next question. We're just talked about brand, and Devici is short and sweet and interesting. So go ask her about how they came up with the name. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I wish we could dig into it. I want to know more, but we're out of time. So, cliffhanger.
There we go.
As you
Next
do,
time.
go hang out with
Yes.
Laura. I love it. Laura, before we close out, you are more than a marketer. And I want to know, for you in particular, 2024, this COVID thing, we figured it out. We're sort of living with it. It is what it is. But life is back in action. So, what are you
It
most
is.
looking forward to in the second half of 2024?
Professionally or personally?
Either, both. Well, I don't know what's coming to mind for you. What are you
I
looking forward
mean,
to?
I'll be honest. We have my family has got lots of fun activities planned. I have a daughter who's just finished middle school, and so we're celebrating that, and we're looking forward to high school and all of the activities and time spent. Yes, I think that was the big part of taking a break was kind of resetting where my priorities were, and so. I have a very busy job, but I also have boundaries to make sure I spend time with my family and kind of some fun sports and things coming that we're all really excited about.
Does your family have a particular sport y'all lean into?
So yes, my daughter rides horses competitively. So we spend a lot of time. That is, if anybody does that, they know that's a whole thing. So um, we spend a lot of time with animals. We love animals in my family. Yes, so dogs and a horse and all the things. So um, watching that, watching the relationship that comes along with doing that sport specifically is a really fulfilling thing as a parent. So um, I mean, we're excited about what's coming.
Oh my gosh, at high school. Whew,
Whew.
milestones all around.
Yes, I remember the bedtime. I remember the work and the bedtime, all of that. That those days end, I promise.
Which is
But
a
they're so
blessing.
precious in the moment.
I will miss them, and also I won't
Yes,
miss them. It's gonna be, oh yeah, it's gonna be a tug of war. It's gonna be great.
I promise
Um,
it is, and it's a good one. It's an important one.
well, I'm grateful for the insight because the bedtime struggle is they are 8 and it is and it continues.
Yes, independence. Yes.
It's coming. It's coming, and then they're never going to hang out with me again. What am I
I
getting?
feel your pain. I totally understand.
Parenting,
There's a
parenting.
whole conversation to be had about parenting and moms and small companies, and that's a whole nother conversation for us to have one day.
I am here for it, and we could either do it live and bring together a roundtable, or just the two of us, or all of the above. I am here for it. It is definitely a struggle where all of us moms at small companies and startups are feeling. And if you need a support group, Laura and I got you. Hit us
Yes.
up. We'll get
Call
it
me.
going. We'll
Yes.
get it going. I would love
100%.
I would love that. Laura, I am so grateful for this conversation.
Yeah.
I thank you for bringing it back to the customer. I keep saying it. Hopefully it'll sink on in for folks, and we'll figure out how to pick up that phone and figure out how our customers are doing with our existing product and how we can make it better for them, and then build that all the way through that customer journey end to end. It's going to be
Yes.
glorious as we all continue to navigate this new world. It's a new world. The customer's in the driver's seat. Whether you want to accept it or not, that's just what's happening. So buckle up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Buckle up. Thank you all for listening. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps complex brands like cybersecurity get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me. I'm so out of practice here. It's hosted by me, Carrie Card, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you would like to be a guest, I would absolutely love to have you and to have more deep conversations, just like I did with Laura. And hit me up. Let's hang out. Thank you all again. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.